In today's video, we're going to look at how to solve a proportion. So if you remember, a proportion is just two equivalent fractions. And so right now, we have that 3/4 is equal to 18 over x. And our goal is going to be to solve for x. So one way that you can do this is you can think about a giant 1. So I know that if I take 3 over 4 and I multiply it by some number, in this case, a giant 1, it will equal 18 over x. So thinking back to what we know about a giant 1, really any number divided by itself is 1. And so we're going to compare the numbers that we do know. We do know that we have 3, and we're trying to make it 18 using multiplication. So 3 multiplied by 6 would give me 18. But if I multiply this by 6, I also need to multiply my denominator by 6 so that I'm multiplying by a giant 1, and really remember multiplying by 1 does not change a value. So if I take 3, multiply it by 6, it gives me 18. If I take 4, multiply it by 6, it gives me 24. Therefore, in this proportion, x has to be equal to 24. Using the numbers that I now have, I can make the statement that 3/4 is equivalent to 18 24ths. If I simplify 18 24ths, it gives me 3/4. If I multiply 3/4 by 6 over 6, it gives me 18 24ths. Another way to check this is to use something called the cross product. So if I take the numerator 3 and multiply it by the denominator 24, that gives me 72. If I multiply the denominator 4 by the numerator 18, it also gives me 72. Because these have an equivalent cross product, I know that I've solved the proportion correctly. Because the cross product being equivalent in any proportion is true, that's another way that you can solve a proportion. So if I take the same proportion, which is 3/4 is equivalent to 18 over x, and I use the cross product to solve, I'm hopefully going to get x is 24 in this case as well. So we're going to take 3 and multiply it by x, and it should be equal to 4 multiplied by 18. I'm going to go ahead and solve this equation. 3 times x is really just 3x. 4 times 18 is going to give me 72. If I wanted to solve this equation, I would divide both sides of my equation by 3, and I would get, in this case, that x is 24. So, once again, this was called the cross product, and if you use the cross product or cross multiplication, you can solve a proportion as well. Looking at the second example, if I were going to try to use a giant 1, I would have to be comparing 5 to 2. There isn't a very nice number that I can multiply 5 by to get 2. So in this case, I'm going to use a cross product to be a little bit more efficient. So I'm going to take 5, multiply it by 10, and it needs to be equal to 2 multiplied by x minus 3. I'm going to go ahead and solve this. 5 multiplied by 10 is 50. Distributing my 2 to the x and the minus 3 gives me 2x minus 6. From here, I'm going to use my algebraic skills to go ahead and solve for x by adding 6 to both sides, which gives me 56 is equal to 2x. 56, not 52. Let's erase that guy there. I'm going to divide both sides by 2 to solve for x, and I will get that x is equal to 28. If I want to go ahead and check myself, I'm going to go ahead and substitute that 28 for x. So I would know that 5 over 28 minus 3 should be equivalent to 2 over 10. 28 minus 3 is 25, so 5 25ths should be equivalent to 2 tenths. Simplify 5 25ths by dividing both my numerator and denominator by 5, I get 1/5. Simplify 2 tenths by dividing both my numerator and denominator by 2, I get 1/5. Therefore, I know that 1/5 is equivalent to 1/5, so x equals 28 is the solution.